Good afternoon. Thank you for meeting with me.
No problem.
We're going to start with our conference today, and this is our post-conference from the observation that I did on Wednesday. I want to start out with just some general questions so we can kind of reflect on the actual lesson itself. First, what do you feel went well during your lesson?
I feel like the kids were very receptive to the lesson. They performed very well on the fluency questions, which tells me that they have a good backing from last school year. And overall, through exit tickets and all, I just feel like the kids understood the concept in the end. So that made me feel good about the lesson.
What would you do differently if you had to teach the same lesson again?
Same lesson again, definitely I would split into groups. I would begin with whole group fluency, but then when it came time for more of the modeling part, I would have split them into two groups. I was unable to do that because we don't have laptops and computer programs ready yet in our district for this school year. It's only the first full week of school, but normally I would teach one small group while the other group is on their computer work for the day. And then I would flip-flop them. And I was unable to do that because we're not quite ready with our district.
I appreciate you doing this observation for me in the first week.
That's fine.
All right. We're going to go over some of the post-observations questions on this form. It says, in light of your instructional objectives, how do you think the lesson went? Which kind of was basically about this one. This was more of your feelings.
Right. In light of the objectives, the kids did understand how to abstractly use the place value chart, which I think was the whole point, because initially they started using a concrete chart and then they had to kind of visualize that chart and be able to do the multiplication and division without it. So I think that went well. Some of them are still struggling a bit. Some are still using a place value chart, but the goal is to wean them off of that.
All right. And did the students learn what you wanted them to, and how do you know?
The students did learn what I wanted them to know, and I know through observation, questioning, and I used the exit ticket at the end of the lesson, and the majority of them were on track. Those that were not, we've been reinforcing since then. The actual lesson test is not coming up until next week.
Okay. Were the choices of teaching methods or strategies effective? How do you know?
The choices were effective as of now. I'll know more once I've actually tested them on this lesson. I do feel like I could have done some things differently and better, but that's the way it goes. You work with what you have. I wish I would have had the computer to reinforce the skill, but it went well anyway.
All right. Any other comments you want to add?
No, not really.
Okay. If you can sign for me,
Okay.
Teacher. Yes, ma'am. And then I'm going to go over, I did script while I was in there and observing the lesson. I scripted everything that was done.
Okay.
What I did was we had talked about we were doing the preparation and the planning and the preparation part. So what I did was I took all of these focus skills and basically I just highlighted, these were focus skills that were given to me, and then I highlighted when I was going through the script and when I saw that you achieved it.
Okay.
So I kind of added some things to it, so I'm just going to kind of go over that with you.
Okay.
So first, your lesson objectives, I put that they were able to reason abstractly using the place value understanding to relate adjacent base 10 units from millions to thousands. The objectives represented high expectations and rigor. The teacher connects objectives to previous and future learning. I liked how you started that out right away, connected it to the previous lesson from the day before. The objectives are written in terms of what students will learn rather than do. because when you did, going back to that, relating it, you did say, yesterday's lesson, and you went on to talk about that. And then you said, today we're going to do it like this because the goal is to future for you not to use the place value chart. Mm-hmm. So you related all of it together. So you use clear objectives, precise objectives, and achievable objectives in relation to the time and student abilities. Your knowledge of the subject, I put that the teacher plans reference curricular framework and ensures accurate sequencing while following the Eureka curriculum with fidelity. And you used mathematical talk. And this just states that you provided appropriate content activities to reflect the abilities. You had appropriate contact activities to achieve the lesson objectives. You provided accurate information and current information. One part of the lesson, you related what I was doing. You're talking about the ones, and you started talking about dollars when they were taking the 10, take away the 10, or take out 10. Mm-hmm. I forgot what it's called. But you related to dollars to money, and they were able to relate what you were doing with that. Methods and materials. Materials and resources support the learning goals and require intellectual engagement as appropriate. The pacing of the lesson provides students the time needed to be intellectually engaged, and materials were presented in an organizing manner. In the lesson, when you started them and you told them tighten up, and they all came to the front, then it was quickly that y'all dispersed the boards, the markers, and everybody was engaged the whole time, writing the answers on the board. That way you can easily monitor. So it was really good. Using to the list on here, it says uses appropriate strategies, teaching procedures, and materials. Uses an appropriate introduction, development, and conclusion. And you followed, like I said earlier, you followed the curriculum with fidelity throughout the pacing process. You made provisions for students to manipulate materials, uses materials and methods to reinforce learning, stimulate interest, and stimulate direct experience, and presents materials in an organized and interesting manner. And this part, I was thinking about this yesterday because when I was doing this, you had said that one of the things you thought was challenging was meeting the individual needs. And I got to commend you on this because you constantly kind of took the pulse of the class and watched them as they were going over it. And when you got to the part where it was supposed to go on to the problem set, you said, hold on, let's do a few more problems because I don't think you're quite ready yet. And you did more problems. You did more problems with them. So I thought that was really great that you adjusted the lesson for them. It wasn't like individual like you used to doing with it different, but you took the overall pace of the class and you knew, wait, they're not ready, so you adjusted. I put the teacher monitoring of student understanding is sophisticated and continuous. The teacher is constantly taking the pulse of the classroom. Feedback includes specific and timely guidance for at least a group of students. Like I said, we weren't working at that time with the individuals, it was the whole group. The teacher makes frequent use of strategies to elicit information about individual students' understanding. The teacher makes adjustments to the lesson to enhance the understanding by her group of students, which I thought was really good. And then the list through it says, organizes individual and group activities in a meaningful manner, monitors classroom activities, shows fairness, tact, and good judgment in dealing with the students, uses student answers, errors, and difficulties to identify student learning problems, modify the planning and instruction, provides accurate and prompt feedback throughout the lesson, uses student knowledge, experiences, ideas, questions, and responses effectively, modifies the instruction in relation to the learner needs, and helps students to analyze, synthesize, and think critically. So one thing, I know it wasn't on here, but one thing that I did put as a strength, which we're about to get to, your classroom management. The minute they walked in, they knew exactly what to do. You have the flexible seating, and they knew that they could go there. If they went yesterday, they couldn't, so they knew the whole procedure. And that was the point, we were only in school for 4 or 5 days. So I thought that was awesome. The overall lesson evaluation, the students quickly worked to solve the problems presented on their marker boards. The students worked independently to solve problems from the workbook, and the teacher continuously monitors for student understanding. So I put constructs suitable classroom instruments to effectively assess the student performance and evaluates the effectiveness of instructional materials, provides opportunities for students to perform the required behaviors. So listed, I had to list your strengths and an area to refine. Your strengths, your knowledge of the subject, the way you were able to relate the lessons, future, past, and just the knowledge to be able to make the connections for them. That's really good. meeting the individual needs because of the adjustment of the lesson. You know, the way you knew that they weren't ready to go on to that problem set, you stepped in and you adjusted. And then you classroom management. Like I said, after 4 or 5 days of school, and they knew exactly what to do. When you said, I loved when you said the 3, 2, 1, and they said,
should be done.
Yes, I loved it. So it was really good. It helped the transitions, and you were able to move quickly with the lesson. The area to refine, I did put student-led discussions. Because as I was observing it, it was more of
teacher-led.
Yes, teacher-led. You would post the question, and a few would answer. One was one child was more overpowering than the others. He had some very good points, but in order to get everyone involved, some student-led discussions would be great. So with that being said, I developed a professional growth plan. And it is on the student-led discussions. So the description of activities which you could to accomplish the targeted behavior. I have research strategies for incorporating student-led discussions in the classrooms. There are videos that you can watch. There's a Socrates method and Kagan strategies as well. You can observe a class that uses student-led discussions. And another suggestion was, or another activity was to use discussion starter prompts for students. About a year ago, I think I found, and I know a teacher that uses them. In the classroom, there's little cutouts, and they're laminated on a little binder ring, and it lists these. I agree, disagree with you.
I have them. We just haven't got that
All
far in the school year.
Sorry.
But yes, no need to be sorry.
Well, that's good, and that clicks
coming.
that off. That checks that off then. So
it's coming in the future.
Okay. So that was just a strategy for them. That way they can discuss with each other in more of a student-led
That's what the Math Talk bulletin board is going to be.
Perfect.
The different sentence starters to get the discussions going.
Okay, perfect. So then
we're going to work our way to it.
There we go. See, the timeline will be accomplished before. I had the timeline just of starting now until May 2019, and the resources needed, computer research, videos, discussion, starter prompts, which you are already on your way. So that was perfect. All right, that was it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem.